On his inauguration day, he made a symbolic gesture by walking down Pennsylvania Avenue instead of riding in a limousine, emphasizing his connection to the average American. Despite his intentions, Carter's lack of experience with the political landscape of Washington alienated many in Congress, which was largely controlled by his own Democratic Party. His administration's important legislation faced significant hurdles on Capitol Hill, often stalling or being diluted in the legislative process. This highlighted the complexities of governance and the challenges that arise when a president attempts to shift the balance of power without fully understanding the political dynamics at play. According to political scientist James David Barber, presidents can be classified into 4 distinct character types based on their energy levels and their attitudes towards the presidency. Active positive presidents are those who invest a lot of energy into their roles. They are flexible, have a sense of humor, and are eager to learn and adapt. This character type is often associated with effective leadership and a proactive approach to governance. On the other hand, passive positive presidents enjoy the prestige of the office, but do not actively engage with the responsibilities it entails. They are friendly and seek approval, but tend to delegate significant decisions to their subordinates rather than taking the lead themselves. This can lead to a lack of decisive action and ultimately to ineffective leadership. Examples of passive positive presidents include figures who preferred to maintain their popularity over making tough decisions. Passive negative presidents are rare and typically assume office reluctantly, lacking enthusiasm for the position. They are often politicians who feel drafted into the role rather than elected out of ambition. These presidents usually show little engagement and energy, resulting in minimal impact on governance and often a sense of detachment from political challenges. Their reluctance to lead can hinder the effectiveness of their administration. In contrast, active negative presidents possess significant energy but tend to take their roles too seriously, viewing political opposition as personal affronts. They see the presidency as a heavy burden and often struggle with anxiety and paranoia regarding their opponents. Barber argues that America's most troubled presidencies, such as those of Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon, were characterized by active negative traits, leading to a confrontational style of governance that created turmoil and dysfunction in their administrations. Barber's analysis suggests that the character type of a president can profoundly affect their leadership style, effectiveness, and the overall health of their administration. Active negative presidents often face challenges that exacerbate their insecurities, leading to overreactions and a tendency to make decisions that may not serve the public interest. Understanding these character types can provide insight into the political dynamics of each presidency, illustrating how personal traits can influence national policy and governance. While James David Barber's classification of presidential characters into 4 distinct types offers valuable insights, many critics argue that this simplification does not adequately capture the complexities of human behavior. People are multidimensional, and categorizing them into just 4 types can overlook the nuances of individual personalities and circumstances. This criticism points to the intricate motivations and emotional landscapes that shape a president's actions and decisions while in office. An interesting paradox exists regarding the pursuit of the presidency. Barber notes that few individuals who attain the office do so without a vigorous drive and ambition. The rigorous campaigns and relentless work required to secure a nomination and win an election suggest that many candidates are highly active and engaged. This raises questions about how someone characterized as passive could navigate the competitive landscape of presidential politics and achieve such a demanding role. Barber suggests that once individuals achieve the presidency, they may confront the harsh realities of the role, leading to disillusionment. This disconnect can stem from the immense responsibilities that come with the office, often causing former candidates who were once eager to lead to find themselves unhappy or overwhelmed in the position. This phenomenon emphasizes the complex relationship between ambition and the reality of governance, revealing that the burdens of leadership may not align with one's initial motivations. Barber's insights proved prescient when he predicted Richard Nixon's behavior amid the Watergate scandal. He noted that Nixon's chronic insecurities would likely lead him to act defensively and deceitfully, compounding his troubles rather than alleviating them. This analysis highlights the potential consequences of a president's psychological makeup and character traits on their decision-making and overall effectiveness in office, illustrating how personal struggles can impact national governance. Barber advocates for a deeper understanding of the lifelong character traits of presidential candidates to provide voters with more meaningful insights into who they are electing. He suggests that examining the historical patterns of candidates' behaviors and motivations will reveal how they might handle the pressures of the presidency. This approach calls for a more nuanced evaluation than simply relying on sensationalized campaign rhetoric, leading to a more informed electorate and a healthier democratic process. While Barber's advocacy for analyzing presidential character offers valuable insights, it presents a significant challenge: the feasibility of conducting comprehensive investigations into each candidate. In an election cycle with multiple contenders, how can journalists, political scientists, or psychologists gather sufficient information to form a well-rounded picture of each candidate's character? The complexities of personality and the time constraints of election cycles make thorough analysis daunting, leading to potential oversights or superficial evaluations. Analyzing a candidate's character can be highly subjective, as it is often influenced by the perspectives and biases of the investigator. If multiple analysts produce conflicting character assessments of the same candidate, voters may find it difficult to discern which evaluation is accurate or trustworthy. This variability underscores the challenges in developing a standardized method for character assessment, as interpretations of behavior and personality traits can differ significantly based on individual viewpoints. Barber's perspective raises questions about the reliability of character studies conducted by various analysts. While he may be a respected source, others might not have the same level of credibility or impartiality. This situation highlights the risks of personal biases seeping into character assessments, where analysts could inadvertently allow their preferences or prejudices to influence their findings. Voters, therefore, may struggle to identify genuinely objective character evaluations that reflect a candidate's true potential for effective leadership. To mitigate the risks associated with subjective character analyses, Barber suggests a peer review process where leading politicians within each party assess and narrow down candidates before primaries. This approach could potentially lead to more informed candidate selections, as experienced politicians might better understand the qualities that indicate effective leadership. However, implementing such a system raises practical challenges, including the need for party cohesion and agreement on the criteria for candidate evaluation. While the idea of peer review among party leaders presents an intriguing solution to screening candidates for potential character flaws, enforcing such a system legally is complex. Questions arise regarding the legality of political parties regulating candidate entry into elections. Additionally, candidates with problematic personalities may resist or manipulate the process to secure their positions. This scenario illustrates the difficulties of maintaining integrity and transparency in candidate selection, while navigating the inherent complexities of political dynamics. The contrasting leadership styles of American presidents have profoundly impacted their administrations and governance. President Carter, characterized by his hands-on approach, diligently supervised many aspects of his administration, leveraging his intelligence and energy to stay deeply involved. While this method enabled Carter to address many details, critics argue that such an exhaustive style can lead to burnout and may scatter focus, ultimately hindering the ability to make impactful decisions at higher levels of leadership. Carter's commitment to detail exemplifies a leadership style that, while well-intentioned, can potentially overwhelm an executive. By attempting to manage every facet of his presidency, a leader risks exhausting themselves and may lose sight of the bigger picture. Critics of this style, including management experts, suggest that effective executives should delegate responsibilities and focus on strategic decision-making, ensuring that their administration operates smoothly without micromanagement leading to inefficiencies. Critics of this style, including management experts, suggest that effective executives should delegate responsibilities and focus on strategic decision-making, ensuring that their administration operates smoothly without micromanagement leading to inefficiencies. In stark contrast, President Reagan's leadership style was notably hands-off, allowing trusted subordinates to handle the intricacies of his administration. While this approach enabled him to conserve energy, it also led to significant governance issues, such as the Iran-Contra affair. Critics argue that Reagan's lack of direct oversight created an environment where subordinates might misinterpret his general directions, leading to serious repercussions and ethical violations. This example highlights the risks associated with a laissez-faire leadership style in high-stakes governance. When President Bush took office, there were concerns he might emulate Carter's exhaustive management style, focusing too much on details. However, he adopted a more measured approach, particularly in foreign policy, by consulting a close circle of trusted advisors before making significant decisions. This strategy allowed Bush to present policies as well-established conclusions, rather than products of prolonged debate, thereby influencing public and congressional reception. His method reflects a balance between oversight and delegation, aiming for effective governance without micromanaging. The leadership styles of U.S. presidents have important consequences for their effectiveness and public perception. Carter's intensive supervision may have stifled broader strategic thinking, while Reagan's detached approach raised concerns about accountability and oversight. The leadership styles of U.S. presidents have important consequences for their effectiveness and public perception. Carter's intensive supervision may have stifled broader strategic thinking, while Reagan's detached approach raised concerns about accountability and oversight. Bush's blend of energy and strategic delegation sought to avoid the pitfalls of both extremes, aiming for a leadership style that capitalizes on the strengths of his advisors while maintaining a coherent vision. Each approach teaches valuable lessons about the complexities of executive leadership in a dynamic political environment. Can there be a balanced approach between a hands-on and a hands-off leadership style? President Eisenhower, who served from 1953 to 1961, achieved this balance through a method he termed the hidden hand presidency. Despite a public image that suggested a relaxed leader more interested in golfing than governance, political scientist Fred Greenstein found that Eisenhower was actively engaged in complex decision-making behind the scenes. He often preferred to allow others to take credit for successes, making his leadership style appear less assertive. By facilitating this dialogue, Eisenhower could gauge opposition while subtly influencing their perspectives without appearing domineering, showcasing strategic manipulation. President Franklin D. Roosevelt employed a different strategy known as deliberate chaos. This involved establishing numerous agencies and advisors who sometimes worked at cross purposes, allowing competing ideas to surface. Roosevelt believed that this method would bring the most significant issues to his attention, while allowing less critical matters to be resolved independently. This hands-off style of governance empowered lower-level officials and encouraged creativity and problem-solving, demonstrating an alternative approach to presidential leadership. President Clinton's administration took cues from Roosevelt's method, adopting a more spontaneous approach to governance while actively participating in policy deliberations. His leadership style combined elements of both hands-on engagement and the collaborative chaos seen in Roosevelt's approach. Clinton's personal involvement in key discussions reflected a desire to influence outcomes directly, while still encouraging input from various advisors, allowing for a dynamic exchange of ideas and a blend of authority with collaboration. The exploration of leadership styles among U.S. presidents underscores the complexity of effective governance. Eisenhower's hidden hand method illustrates that subtlety can yield significant results, while Roosevelt's deliberate chaos shows how creating an environment of collaboration can foster innovation. Clinton's approach reflects a synthesis of these ideas, demonstrating that the ideal leadership style may depend on situational factors and individual personalities. Each style offers lessons on navigating the challenges of executive leadership effectively. Presidential systems face unique challenges that parliamentary systems do not, particularly when it comes to dealing with disabled or incapacitated presidents. In a parliamentary system, if a prime minister becomes unable to fulfill their duties, they can be replaced quickly. However, the U.S. Constitution outlines that if a president is unable to discharge their duties, the vice president should take over, but it does not specify how this inability is determined, leaving a gap in protocol that can complicate transitions. Several U.S. presidents have remained in office despite significant health issues. For instance, President Woodrow Wilson suffered strokes that impacted his ability to lead during crucial negotiations, such as the Versailles Peace Conference. His incapacitation was so severe that his wife effectively managed his responsibilities, raising ethical concerns about transparency and governance. The question of whether such leaders should remain in office during severe health crises remains contentious. Franklin D. Roosevelt faced considerable health challenges while in office, including heart failure and hypertension. He was elected to a fourth term in 1944 while gravely ill, ultimately attending critical diplomatic events like the Yalta Conference, where his declining health may have affected his decision-making abilities. The implications of his health on his leadership decisions highlight the importance of addressing presidential fitness and governance, especially when national interests are at stake. The reluctance of White House physicians to disclose the health status of presidents raises ethical concerns. This stems from the privileged nature of the doctor-patient relationship, where confidentiality is paramount. Physicians may also have personal motivations to protect their patients, which can conflict with the public's right to know about the health of their leaders. This lack of transparency can have grave implications for national security and governance if a president is not fit to serve. Presidential health issues not only affect the individuals, but can also significantly impact historical events and decisions. For example, President Kennedy's struggle with Addison's disease and reliance on steroids may have influenced his approach to critical moments such as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Understanding the health conditions of leaders is crucial for analyzing their decisions and the broader implications for the country, underscoring the need for clear guidelines on presidential fitness. The 25th Amendment, ratified in 1967, aimed to clarify presidential incapacity, but has not completely resolved the challenges. For instance, during a severe assassination attempt in 1981, President Reagan was gravely injured, losing a significant amount of blood and undergoing extensive surgery.